Let me read a few more things. The AG had 49, NCNC had 26, and then of course when it was time to elect people to go to the House of Representatives, all 5 wanted to go, so the AG appointed 2 Yoruba men, Olorunimbe and Adedoyin. And I mentioned something earlier. Prince Adeleke Adedoyin, his father was literally a king. Zik went to his father and told him that he should persuade his son to step down for Zik. And the king asked a simple question. That seat, is it a good seat? Zik said yes. Then the father asked the question, if it's a good seat, why should I tell my son to step down for you? And that way, we found another tribalist in Yoruba land. So Zik is a tribalist collector, just collecting tribalists everywhere. If you go against him, you're a tribalist. Let's go back to the original book now, The Educated Elite in Nigerian Society. Thwarted and agonized in his efforts in 1951 to transfer his political ambition to Western region, Azikiwe read the writing on the wall that Yoruba land could not be his constituency, that his power base was Igbo land in the Eastern region, where he could reap the benefit of charity beginning at home. In a meteor-like fashion, he descended on the Eastern region, easily dislodged the non-Igbo leadership of the regional government, that's Ayoita, and rapidly succeeded in installing himself as the undisputed head of the region on the fulcrum of Igbo nationalism as symbolized by the NCNC, which was not originally an Igbo party, which was originally a Yoruba, it was a nationalist party formed by Yoruba people. Zik hijacks it, turns it into an Igbo party, then calls everybody a tribalist. You see how this works? This is what you are hearing today now. A party was almost hijacked last year. Fill in the gap. Nnamdi Azikiwe was prominently and vocally connected with the Igbo State Union. Naturally, he did his best to see the interest of the Igbo was not adversely affected. Thus, in the 50s, whilst Awolowo was being a quixotic idealist, injuring the most precious feelings of the Fulani Hausa leadership, Azikiwe was far more restrained and anxious to cooperate with the Fulani Hausa leadership. There was no question of him being petulantly arrogant like his Yoruba rival, who reportedly boasted once that he would never serve under a Northerner. That's true. I will say that. For good reason. We discussed it before, we discussed it again, but not today. For good reason. Not very, he shouldn't have gone that way, but he had his reasons. And if you were here when we discussed his reasons, you understand. Awo didn't care for power as much as he cared for the people. I promise when it's time to talk about Awo and Akintola, we'll go deeper into that. In 1959, Azikiwe decided that the NCNC be a junior partner with the NPC in the federal government. Again, we spent some time on this the last time. Zik did not just decide as a strategist, like this, he called him a tactician and strategist. He knew when to stop. In 1959, he decided that the NCNC be a junior partner with the NPC in the federal government. I said that these are things that you say in order to prop people up. Not that there's something wrong with propping people up, but just to explain the fact that before this point, the tactician in Zik and the strategist in Zik was actually going to work with the AG in 1959. They were going to form the government. Because no party in Nigeria, no region could independently form government in 1959. So Awo was going to work with Zik because Awo couldn't just work with the establishment in the north. And the answer is simple, feudalism. That's the answer. I mean, we can explain it and make it bigger, but that's the simple answer. Feudalism. There was feudalism in the north. Awo hated it. Awo preferred to work with the people. The establishment didn't like Awo's strategy or even the audacity of the man to work in their region. So I work with the East because they were educated and things like that, and they could do great things at the center, right? So I will try to work with AG, will try to work with NCNC. It was going very well until the issue that we discussed last week. The summary was that in 1955, Zik had taken money belonging to Eastern Region Marketing Board and he had funneled it into his own personal bank, African Continental Bank, and he had used that bank to now get the money into his own companies. The money at that time was £877,000. It's big money even today. Zik took all of that money, right, and he didn't pay back. And he became a major problem, right? Eyoita had to report, went all the way to the House of Lords in the UK, and on Wednesday, I read the Hansard, what the Lords discussed about what they had to do, which of course led to the setting up of a tribunal called the Foster Sutton Tribunal, and they found Zeke guilty. Apparently has been spending a lot of money that I did not have. We also played a video by Howard Smith, who was a British colonial officer and had arrived in Nigeria in 1955 and was present throughout this process. And he talked about the fact that they persuaded Zeke to work with the North. Easy, because he had this case on him. He was going to go to prison. £877,000 you can't find. By the way, there's a long history of people misappropriating money from the Eastern region in Nigeria. There's a very long history. That's why when they had that coup in 1966, and they said they were killing nepotists and corrupt people that were doing 10%, according to Cardinal Zogu, when he was talking about all those fantastic things, the people they should have, I mean, it's not good to unalive anybody, but they should have been more interested in their fellows from the Southeast, because they did terrible things. Whether it was one for Rizu, who took money, got convicted, and Zeke made sure he got pardoned, or it was Ikejani who was doing his own thing and Zeke ensured that he was not let go. Even when they let go of him in UI, Zeke still found a way to get him into the State House and eventually into Nigeria Railway Corporation, right? Or Mbadiwe himself, who fly his family members to New York and not pay the Nigerian government because he was the head of Nigerian Airways. All these things were happening. Nobody really had any problem with them. It's just when you say you want to kill nepotists and corrupt people, they must be from every other place but your place. And if you speak against that, you are the tribalist. So I said to take like a second to think about it. It still doesn't make sense, by the way. But that's how things go. So the point is that the prison, you go jail. If I don't go jail, with the threat of the possibility of Zeke going to prison, he decided to work with the Northerners. It was not because he was strategic or because he was a tactician. It was because he was blackmailed by the British, according to Harold Smith, and according to this very fantastic book called A Fatherless People by Dele Ogun. That's a very good book, right? Let's go on. So yes, Zeke NCNC became the junior partner with the NPC in the federal government, though in practice, the Igbo became the senior partner, holding the higher echelons in the civil service and the foreign embassies. And we also said that the NCNC was supposed to be, see, look at the play of words, and I hope you caught that. I'll read it again slowly. In 1959, Azikiwe decided that the NCNC be a junior partner with the NPC in the federal government. Though in practice, the Igbo became the senior partner, holding the higher echelons in the civil service and the foreign embassies. Did you notice a switch? Anybody notice any switch? Let's just engage for a second or for a moment. Did you notice any switch? The NCNC was supposed to be the junior partner, but in actual fact, the Ibos became the senior ones because they held the top echelons. Did you notice any switch? Here is the switch. NCNC went into agreement with MPC, but Ibos got the... You saw it, Yemonite? Yeah. Ibos became the senior partners. Ibos got the jobs. They have more educated people. No, they did not. Ibos had more educated people than the Hausas. But Ibos were not the only one in NCNC. That's the point. You don't get the point. The point is this. If NCNC is becoming senior partner, and NCNC was created by Yoruba people, and Yoruba people were still present in NCNC, how come it was the Ibos that took advantage of all the jobs in the federal civil service? What happened to the Yoruba members of NCNC? But you are the tribalist. So it was, the agreement was not Igbo and Hausa. The agreement was NCNC and NPC. NCNC, of course, had more educated people than the North, than NPC. But How come the only educated people that got the jobs in the civil service and high commission and embassies, how come they were just the Igbo people in NCNC? What happened? This is the reason. If you've read that white paper, is in our Telegram channel, by the way. Please check Radio Me Global on Telegram. You find it. White paper on political alignment in Western Nigeria. That paper was published not by Action Group members, but by Western Region Caucus of the NCNC, who felt slighted over the years. They were in the party, but the party was cornered. Every major thing, any cornerable things, they were cornered by an ethnic group. But that ethnic group since 1950 till today still tells you that you are the tribalist. Did you not see it recently? Before the government that ended in 2015, did you not see how things were cornered? Did you not see in 2023 during the elections? Did you not see how a party suddenly began to? I mean, I'm not saying the only people that came from that party were from a particular ethnic group, but it'd be like, say, you just notice that when you get to Sokoto, the Oga of the party in that Sokoto is from one ethnic group. That same ethnic group is producing the chairman of that party in different parts of Nigeria. North, south, east, west. So that when you gather all the chairmen of the party from all over Nigeria, one ethnic group has more people representing different states, even outside their own state of origin, in that party. But we're tribalists. Of course we are not. That's the point. The point is that a person who actually does this thing and has actually perfected the art constantly projects his reality and says that you are the one doing what you have never thought of doing. No, he has been doing it all this while. So that was the switch I wanted to talk about. I'm glad we all got it now. Let's continue. Azikiwe himself bade goodbye to politics and became a ceremonial head of state. However, restrained as he was as president of the First Republic, the tribalist in him surfaced on some occasions. On those occasions when his tribe was in trouble. For instance, while the going was good and the marriage of convenience with the Northerners was all right, Nnamdi Azikiwe said nothing whatsoever publicly about the Tiv riots in order not to annoy the political leaders of the North. However, when the marriage was on the path to divorce, as will soon be revealed, and Northern Nigeria government began to threaten the opportunities and privileges which had hitherto been allowed the Igbo in that part of the country, Azikiwe began to speak out on the necessity to uphold the fundamental liberties enshrined in the Nigerian Constitution. This was around the time we began to hear a lot about the Northern Nigerian policy. If you want to know more about the international policy, please read the book by Ahmadu Bello, My Life. Thank you for the gifts. Thank you so much. Read My Life by Ahmadu Bello. You understand. No, people say he was obsessed with the Ibos. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, but that policy makes sense to me. Now we're doing this countrywide now. So we're talking Nigeria first. It's similar to what's happening in Akwa Ibom right now. Akwa Ibom State indigenous. They have to think of them first. Anambra did the same thing. Enugu did the same thing. And a very interesting turn of events, Enugu went above and beyond anybody could ever think or imagine. Ephesians 3 verse 20. They are doing exceedingly abundantly above anything could ever ask or think or imagine, which was to reduce it to word of origin. Guys, I said I'm petty like this. I'll repeat that thing until it sinks. Enugu is, they are recruiting people based on their word of origin and word of residence. Not local government, to word, as in councillorship ward. W-A-R-D. Word of origin. Anyway, whatever you are saying, Ahmadu Bello was a tribalist, he had the North Nation policy, well, you are just in your words now. Also, when in 1964, the NCNC miscalculated their strategy about elections to the federal parliament to force a showdown with the Northerners, Nnamdi Azikiwe reportedly desired to be offered executive power to have the Igbo reinstated. And in one of his most sentimental addresses, which he delivered at the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, he glorified tribalism as a factor for national unity.